All right, welcome on in everyone to this episode of First CSP, the channel dedicated to bringing you the first council shoulder patch issued from each council in Scouting America, both past and present. Today we take a look at Twin Valley 284 out of Minnesota. Council was formed in 1969 as the merger of Cedar Valley Area 282 and Minnesota Valley Area 284. There are three variations of the first issue. There's actually one where if you go back in previous collector guides, you're going to find two issues, and then more recently they've added a third. My guess is they've done another production run, and it's different enough that they've broken it out to A, B, and now C. Heading over to the patch table, we will see the first issue S1A, defined with its orange border, light green, green, tan, brown, light blue background, which is basically the river scene. It is defined most specifically by having a Type 1 fleur-de-lis, so this is all vertically oriented. And it does say BSA at the end of the council name there at the top. It is a camp and river scene. So nice tent with a fire by the river. Looks quite serene. Probably very true to form for camping in Minnesota. I'm sure it's wonderful up there. I've not had the chance to do so, but I bet it would be great. Taking a look at the back here, we do have a plastic back, kind of the older style for the S1A. I do like the colors on this patch, and the orange border, again, not something you necessarily see quite as much across CSPs. So the very first issue, the S1As are all going to have Type 1 fleur-de-lis. When we look at the next two variations, the S1B and C, those will have Type 2 fleur-de-lis. So next up, we have the S1B. We can see now that the fleur-de-lis on the left-hand side has moved over to be a Type 2 fleur-de-lis with the multi-directional sewing. We've got the same orange border, same background, so light green, green, tan, brown, and light blue. It is a Type 2 fleur-de-lis, does say BSA, Camp and River Scene. They do note that on the S1B, there is the color of the front of the tent here. So yellow in the front end of the tent. I would call that more orange than yellow, but that's okay. There is a very thin bar on the fleur-de-lis. Thin island. And thick brown in the tan banks. So we'll see that the brown is thicker here than the comparative S1C, which will have thin brown in the tan banks. Taking a look at the back here, for the S1B, also a plastic back. We'll put the S1A and B up next to one another for a moment here just to compare. Obviously we can see this is a Type 1 fleur-de-lis on the S1A, Type 2 fleur-de-lis on the S1B, and we can see a very thin bar on the fleur-de-lis. Let's go now to the latest, and that is the S1C. It does look like it's updated in production methods, so it's a kind of more recent and cleaner sewing for the S1C. Also does have a Type 2 fleur-de-lis. We had a much thicker bar on the fleur-de-lis there. Notice we no longer have any yellow, or we can say orange, on the front of the tent. That is one of the defining characteristics as well. So orange border, light green, green, tan, brown, light blue background, type 2 fleur-de-lis, BSA, camp and river scene, no yellow on the front end of the tent, only one spot of dark green in grass on the left. So there was more dark green, which we'll put up the S1B and C together. We have what they're calling a thicker island, comparatively. Thick bar on the fleur-de-lis and thin brown in the tan banks. We'll see that the most latest addition upgrades to the BSA plastic back now. Makes it a little easier for identification. That is the latest, and it is the S1C. Let's put the S1B up against it, because these are the two with type 2 fleur-de-lis. So we can see that the brown in the tan banks has gotten thinner as we move down. Also, there's not much dark green on the left, and here we can see more striations of dark green. That's notable for the two. And then obviously we've got the front tent flap visible on the S1B. There is no front tent flap visible on the S1C. The S1B sewing composition looks a lot more similar to the original S1A, and we can see that this background looks like an updated production technology for the S1C, which does make it pretty easy to identify from the two. We'll swap out the S1B for the original. Again, pretty easy to identify the original, as it is the Type 1 fleur-de-lis, but both the 1A and 1B have the yellow tent flap showing. Here again, the brown in the tan banks is much thicker than we're seeing in the S1C. Again, we get a lot more dark green over here in the grass on the left, whereas the S1C, you just get this little bit here. Again, just another defining characteristic to be able to differentiate the additions there. Well, that is the first issue for Twin Valley 284 out of Minnesota. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode and found it somewhat informative. It's really interesting to see the slight variations as they've had the multiple issues produced in the first run. So S1, A, B, and C all present. Hope you guys have enjoyed that. We've made it a point to try and collect these before doing the episode so that we can give you the best representation and the best guide towards identification for these first issues. I hope you guys have appreciated that as well. We really enjoy doing that. We'll have another new episode back here on the channel tomorrow. We hope to see you back for that. Remember, you can access any of our previous videos 24/7 on our YouTube channel. Please feel free to browse and enjoy past episodes as well. With that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next episode.